Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. I think I'm about a minute or so early, but I wanted to get an early start today because I'm very excited about our guest. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm a sales coach and trainer, and I work with both individuals and organizations internationally to help them do one thing and one thing only: increase their sales. I guarantee you, nobody's hiring me for my good looks. I founded the Sales Pro Network 3 years ago, I believe, to elevate the profession of sales, to give salespeople a place to network, to learn, to earn, and to get coaching from great people like today's guest and many, many others. If you're joining us live today, please say hello in the comments. If you're joining us live on Facebook and have not connected your account to StreamYard, it's just going to say Facebook user. We won't know your name. So if you do have a comment, if you have a question for today's guest, or you just want to say hello, please include your name. And if you do have any questions during the broadcast, please toss them into the chat and I will share them with our guest. And finally, if you are watching us on the replay, please put replay in the comments. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's guest. Connie Whitman is the creator and founder of the company Changing the Sales Game. She is the author of Ready, Connect, and Grow, ESP, the Easy Sales Process, and Changing the Sales Game, as well as the host of the Changing the Sales Game podcast. Please welcome my friend, Connie Whitman. Good morning, Connie.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here because, like you, I love talking about sales.
Yes. And we did it on your podcast. Really fun. It was a great day. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun today, too. Before we get started, Connie, would you maybe give us the 2 or 3 minute version of your background? What brought you into this business?
You know, it's funny, Jeff, actually sales found me right out of college. I worked for a credit company and I started help as a credit card company, a credit company for cars. Anyway, I started working with the sales teams. It was leasing versus buying retail. And back in the day, in the 80s, leases were really good for businesses. So anyway, I started working with the salespeople and they kept putting these clients into retail. So I would call them, I'm like, dude, doing the wrong thing, put them in lease. Here's why. And they were like, oh, we didn't know that. Oh, we don't know how to calculate that. Oh, we don't know what to say to the client. So I just started coaching them. I was in my 20s. What did I know? Nothing. But I did know how to teach, right? So I think organically for me, it was education. Well, then fast forward, a sales position came up. This is the 80s, guys. So remember that. They wouldn't promote me because I was a female. So my boss, can you believe it? True. I mean, this is true stuff. It made me who I am today. So it's all good. But my boss saw something in me. Again, I was in my early 20s. And he said, you've already outgrown this company, Connie. You need to look for another job. So I realized I want to get into sales. I am good at it. I'm all about that education and authenticity. And I was going for my MBA at night in finance. So I thought, let me do financial sales. And that is how the party started. And then I've been in sales now 40 years. Yeah.
Wow. And I just did some quick math. If you were in your 20s in the 80s, you must have some anti-aging pill because you're doing all right. That's good news.
I love you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm turning 62 next month. So thank you.
Wow. God bless. That's great. So why do so many people avoid sales? Because they think it's sleazy, and that in order to be successful, you've got to be like a fast talking sales guy or gal. Why do so many people have that impression?
You know, what's funny is since the beginning of time, I think you had the snake oil salesman, right? Remember that came from town to town. And then they just as quick as they blew in, they blew out because what they were selling was garbage, right? And now we have Wolf of Wall Street and we have Madoff that made off with people's money, no pun intended, right? So we have all these movies now reinforcing that whole sales equates to ick. And it's unfortunate because for me, right in my 20s, I knew nothing. I didn't even know I was helping salespeople sell more effectively and make a ton more money, because for me, it was doing the right thing. It was educating both the salesperson, but educating the client on how it could potentially be better. It was a better solution. So I think that for like you and I, who it's intuitive to help, really come from this place of helping and customizing solutions and seeing who the client is and what their situation is. We're the real deal. We're not the snake oil salesman, but we're taught that. We're taught sales and ick. It's just the way we're raised.
Yeah. And I'd love to say I've always been an honest salesperson, but the truth is I wasn't always. And at about the age of 31, I made a commitment that I'm never, ever going to lie again to take money from somebody or to go out with a woman. But that's another whole story. But, there are, you mentioned the Wolf of Wall Street, and you got, movies like Boiler Room and Glengarry Glen Ross. Give us that, salespeople are scumbags, liars, thieves, and cheats who will do and say anything to take your money. And for me, it became way more important that I sleep at night well than make money. And I discovered that when you're representing the right product and doing it the right way, you don't have to lie or cheat or steal or exaggerate or persuade or convince. To me, sales is simply a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. And I like that definition for two reasons. One is I wrote it and I like everything that I wrote. And the other thing is it takes the pressure off me. It's not my job to talk you into anything when I'm selling to you. It's my job just to have a chat with you and help you come to the right conclusion for you, which hopefully is to do business with me. I just don't need the pressure, which means, of course, and we're going to talk about this later if we get to it, it reinforces the need for consistently prospecting for new business. So you've always got some people that are willing to have a chat with you and eventually say yes, because some are willing to have a chat with you. They're just never going to buy from you, and that's okay. And good morning, Bruce Castleman from BGK Financial. It's good to see you, my friend. So many of the books and experts teaches that sales is like war. And I have this argument with people all the time. Of course, in war, the object is for you to win and the other person to lose. But you and I believe in a win-win philosophy. Can you kind of expand on that a bit?
Yeah, and it's funny. I believe my kids played hockey, Jeff, growing up. So I believe in the hat trick, right, which is the win, win, win. So I go back to my example with the credit company. The salesperson won, right? The company won, the dealership won, the client won. And here's we'll talk about lead generation for a second here, if I could throw this in.
Sure.
So what ended up happening, and again, this was such a good education for me in my 20s. So now the dealer would call, the salesman would call the business owner back and say, hey, listen, we think we might have even something better. Can you come back? Blah, blah, blah. The business owner's like, oh, amen, sign me up. I can write this off. This is amazing. They brought their friends. So their friends who were on the fence of buying a new car, now they were referred to this dealer and the dealer did the lease. So when I applied for that sales position, these dealers started calling me, Jeff, saying, you're going to apply, you're going to apply. And swear to God, this was my response. What do I know about sales? And they said, what do you think you've been helping us do? And then they shared with me how, this win-win-win perspective. And oh, by the way, the credit company I worked for won. So that's 4 wins. To me, that's good, solid business. And that's how we build that lead, that like almost insulated lead generation, because now they had all these referrals coming and it's that ripple effect, right? You tell 2 people, I tell 2 people, all of a sudden 10 people are showing up at the dealer, at our doorstep, buying our products online, whatever it might be. It works.
I love that you brought up the subject of being referable and getting referred. I've had more than one discussion with my coach about referrals because she has a different philosophy than I do. I believe you should be asking for referrals. She says, absolutely not. Do not ask for referrals. It's rude. You don't want to do it. Your job is to be so good that people want to refer you. And I completely agree that that's a lovely thought. My experience is not that you usually get enough referrals. Although I have to admit, she does. I've referred her a gazillion times because I'm so in love with her and she's so fantastic at what she does. And she's never once asked me for a referral. But it's when you do the right thing, when you take great care of people, they do want to share you with others and they will bring you business. So I'm with you 1,000,000% there.
Jeff, can I comment on that? It's interesting because most times when people work with me, chat with me, come on my podcast like you did, right? You said after I was on your podcast, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Will you come on my podcast? We create some real good chemistry here. So what I find is people will say to me at the end of helping, Con, you've done so much for me. How can I help you? And I say, oh, that is so great. Thank you so much. Do you have a friend, family? Who can I help that's in a situation like yours where maybe I can step in and listen? It's an intro. They're going to do business with me. They might not love me. They might. Oh, no, they're going to love you. But people want to know how to help. And I think if we say, can you send me a referral? They feel really good and they know it's exactly what you need.
Yeah. And look, a well-made referral, they're halfway closed.
Oh my goodness.
The deal's halfway done before you even meet with the person.
Yeah.
If you've done your job properly and the person who's making the introduction for you has done the job properly. I think I've given this example here more than once, but I think it's crucial that when somebody is actually going to give you a referral, that if they aren't good at it, and most people aren't, help them to help you. Help them with the verbiage. Like, in the old days, it was like, okay, I'm going to make a call and I'm going to make an introduction for you. These days, almost all referrals are made via email because it's just easier. And My philosophy is this: when somebody says, I have a referral for you, my first words are always, thank you so much. I really appreciate you thinking of me. But the second words are, would it help you if I write the introduction for you? I'll email it over to you. Change it any way you want if you want to, but if you don't want to, that way you can just cut and paste it into a new window, send it out as a, you don't want to forward mine because you don't want the people to see that I wrote the introduction, but send it on. And that way that'll save you some time. Would you like me to do that? Everybody says yes. Now, yeah. I'm actually doing it for two reasons, and they're both selfish. It's not to save them time, although I want to do that too. It's because, one, I know that if I'm going to write my referral and send it off to the person who's going to make the referral for me, I'm going to do it immediately. So it's going to get taken care of right away, as opposed to whenever they get around to it. And of course, when somebody's doing you the favor of giving you a referral, it's lovely whenever they do it. But of course, I want it now. But the more important reason to me is the person who's referring you is most likely not as good as introducing you to the person they're going to make the introduction to as you are. And I want to give you an example, which sure. I know you'll relate to, Connie. So I've been in a networking group. I've been in the same group for 18 years. About 40% of my business comes from that group. I love this group. I love everybody in it. It's actually 35 years old, and some of the people in the group have been in the group that long. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyways, one of my friends from the group, who I know for many, many years, makes an introduction for me. He doesn't tell me he's going to do it, but he copies me on the email. And his verbiage was, Steve, I'm writing to you to introduce you to Jeff Goldberg. He's a very competent sales trainer, blah, 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 blah. Now, lovely. Lovely to get an unexpected introduction, and lovely that my friend thought enough of me and that I could do something for his client to make that introduction. But here's what happened. When I saw my friend the next time, I said, hey, thank you so much for the referral. That was really kind of you. I'm just curious about one thing. Why did you introduce me to Steve as a very competent sales trainer? And he looked at me like I was kind of crazy. Like, what are you talking about? He said, Jeff, you are a very competent sales trainer. Of course I'm going to say that. And my response was, I don't want to use his real name, but let's say it's Dave. I'm so far beyond competent, I can't even see competent in the rearview mirror. I'm amazing. I'm astounding. I produce miraculous results. I mean, why did you say something like that? And he goes, you are that way, but I don't like to oversell. Well, if I'm the person receiving that email, do I want to meet with a very competent sales trainer or with an incredible sales trainer like Connie Whitman? Well, so I'd rather write the introduction myself so that it gets taken care of quickly and they hear what I want them to hear. We're going to come back to prospecting again if we have some time. But when we're selling, what's the difference between a transactional money-driven solution versus a deep relationship a mutually profitable connection? What's the difference there?
For me, and this is the thing, I think that we go in, and listen, preparation is super important. I was even early. You said, can you be there at 10 of? I came, I made sure I was here 2 minutes before that, right? If you're a minute late, you're late, period. So I think that showing up, being prepared, all of those things matters. But as soon as we get in front of that client, it has to be about the client. And we can't go in with our preconceived notion of what that client could need, right? Because you give me a referral and you say, hey, here's their situation. Oh, I know exactly what they need. Do I? So for me, what I do, I call it my pantry. When I meet with the client, I know what my assets are. I know the program, 25 programs I've created over the past 22 years being in business. I know how to ask questions and to uncover where they are, but more importantly, where do they want to go, right? So through all of my process, right, I do that. Well, at the end, I don't have any preconceived notion of what I'm going to sell them. Based on the conversation, I say to them, listen, you have really good strength. Your team has really good strength with XYZ. So what we could do is take this program, and this program, and I could blend the three of them with exactly what you need, because my original program, that's not what you need. You're more advanced than that. So I customize my solution. I should know what assets I have created and should be able to combine them into customized packages for the client. And here's the funny thing, Jeff, when I say I cut every client I sit with, it's customized. I don't walk in and go, yeah, my 7-step program, that's what you need. Is it? I don't know until we have a conversation. And so as soon as people hear the word customized, like, oh, it's going to be more. No, it's not. I already have it created for me to cut and paste from 3 different programs and create the program that you need or that your team needs specifically. It's a win. It's a win for them. It's a win for me, and it's a win for their team, and everybody's making more money. So for me, I think that customization piece becomes really critical. I see it all the time. Salespeople go in, they hear one piece of information, and they're providing a solution. You can't. It's not enough information.
Yeah, and when you just go in with the attitude, I know what the deal is, and here's what I'm going to do for you. Even if you're right, and you could be, you still come across as arrogant. And I can't. I used to struggle with this because I tend toward excuse me, towards arrogance. And
I don't see
uh, well, we can talk about that offline. But of all the industries I've trained, and I've trained a vast array of industries. I mean, it's kind of hard to find a type of company that I haven't done training for. But of all the types of companies I've done training for, the one I've done the most training for is people who sell advertising of any type. Radio, TV, cable, print, you name it. I've trained that kind of advertising. So the truth is, I could walk into just about any organization in the world that has salespeople that speak English that sell advertising and say, here's what your challenges are, and here's how I'm going to fix them. And I'd pretty much be right. But the problem is, even if I'm right, I'm still seen as arrogant because the person who I'm speaking with, like you, probably a president, a CEO, or a VP of sales, they think they're different. Everybody thinks they're. I don't remember the last time I met with somebody like that who didn't say something like this. Jeff, I know you've been doing this a long time, but we're different. How different are they, Connie? They're really not very much. I don't care what you're selling. You got to get yourself in front of a bunch of people. You got to ask a bunch of questions. You got to gain rapport with them. There's a process that you have to take them through no matter what it is. But if I go in arrogant, they don't feel special. And one of my goals is always, how do I make my prospect feel special? How do I make them feel listened to? And when you go in arrogant, it just doesn't work. So I'm with you 1,000,000% on
Well, here's why, Jeff. I could tell you why, right? We are conscious or subconscious beings. So think of an iceberg. That top 5% that's peeking out of the water, that's our conscious mind. So 95% of everything we do is really happening on the subconscious level. So even though consciously you're spot on, and if they were in that conscious realm that they don't feel special, right? That I am a unique entity or being, all of a sudden that 95% isn't needed. But really, when we're talking to other humans, it's mostly subconscious exchange of energy. We are emotional beings. We buy on emotion. Even though we use logic, we buy on emotion subconsciously. And that's exactly what you just said. That's why we need to understand that subconscious realm.
Yeah. And even if you're not different, if you think you are, but I don't acknowledge that, you're not going to buy from me. There's no trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. As sellers, we are communicators. I actually teach communication skills, and I know you're very big on that.
Yes.
And as communicators, we all have unconscious or some subconscious biases and filters that don't necessarily support good, effective conversation. So, what are some of the foundational concepts of communication that cause us all to have these biases and filters?
It's funny. I just taught this class yesterday, and new people, new careers with one of my clients. And I start with this and they look at me because the first question I say is, how many of you think you're good communicators? Everybody's hands goes up. I go, oh, that's great. Let's talk about filters now. And at the end of this, tell me if you still think you're a good communicator. And we giggle, right? So here's the deal. Foundationally, we are born with a certain communication style or behavior. DISC, Myers-Briggs, there's a million out, the predictive index, right? I have my own communication style assessment, which I'll share with everyone at the end, right? It's good to understand and use a model because I get clarity on how, or my superpowers, but I also get clarity on what are my potential blind spots. So foundationally, how you're born, how you die, your communication, your natural innate ability or style choice, it's going to be the same. Intensity might change, but if for DISC, for instance, if you're an ID, you're going to be an ID. If for addictive in nature, a maverick, you're going to be a maverick. The second filter, so that's filter number one. You are who you are, understand it. Number two is gender. Dudes and chicks, we communicate differently, whether we think we do or we don't. Anatomically, we are wired differently. So we both have connectors from the right lobe to the left lobe of the brain. Women have a connector that's a little bit thicker. So the blood flow, if you will, goes back and forth more quickly. That's why we often hear, oh, women are better multitaskers. It's just because we could communicate the left to the right lobe of the brain just quicker than guys can. So men and women definitely see the world and filter information differently. The next one is your heritage, where you were, how you were raised. So I'm Italian. My dad came off the boat. So Christmas Eve, we do the seafood dinner, right? I have 40 people for dinner, which isn't weird at all for me. I have an Irish friend. We both started doing Christmas Eve, hosting Christmas Eve when our parents couldn't do it anymore. And so, oh, what are you making and how many people? And when I told her 40 people, she almost dropped dead. I said, well, how many people are you having? She goes, 8. And she was pooping her pants with 8. I'm like, 40, I got a spreadsheet. The ovens will be like, no big deal. It's how I was raised. Now, if I was born and thrown into creating a dinner for 40 people, I probably would have had a heart attack too. So how you were raised, those customs and cultural things matter on how you see the world. Here's the thing, no judgment here. There's good, bad, and the ugly. You have to decide, is that filter, that cultural whatever, fill in the blank, still serving me? You have to really think about that. So culturally, we see the world differently. Geography is another one. If you were raised on a farm and I was raised on an inner city, I'm going to be much more aggressive than someone who was raised on a farm. I had one young lady, she was so cute. She goes, Con, I was raised on a farm and, I like animals a lot more than I like humans. Well, you were raised on a farm, right? So I totally understood that comment. The next one is our learning style. So you might be able to read something and just remember it forever. I'm a multisensory learner, so I like to hear it. I like to see it. I'm very visual. And I'm like, can I try that now? So I'm kind of a 3-step learning style. So how people learn. So think about this. When we're selling, and this is all happening in the unconscious, by the way, that 95% underneath, we really need to discern, where am I coming from? What are my filters telling me? And then how can I unblock my filters? But now I have to be aware that the client I'm speaking with, what's his heritage or her heritage? What are their genders? What are their styles, behavioral styles? All of this comes into play. The next one is generational. We have 5 generations working side by side, first time in history. So I giggle. I say, yeah, people retire, they're home with their spouse, and they go, okay, I'm going to kill them. I better go and get another part-time job right before there's a death and I'm in the news. So you have, or they have to work because they're not able to live on the savings. So you have 5 generations working side by side. So Jeff, think about it. 22-year-old, they don't know anything about business, but man, oh man, are they good with AI and TikTok and all this other stuff. So I believe in reverse mentoring generationally. So I tap into the youths in my life. I'm like, wait, you said that. Tell me more about that. Show me that app. Explain to me what that means. So generationally, think of the rich dynamic that we have within those multi-generations and how we can exponentially learn. And oh, by the way, understand my filters and understand the filters of others. So that's kind of the framework. Yeah.
That's a lot. By the way, I'm with your friend who likes animals more than people. For me, especially dogs. I like all dogs, not that many people. So we've got these different filters. So what are the 5 different communication styles?
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, I had a colleague and she was certified in Myers-Briggs. I'm certified in DISC. And we were talking one day and I said, oh, I love these models because they, from me as a salesperson and when I teach, if I could teach people to understand their wiring, right? It's tangible. Now they could start to play with it and understand who's in front of me and how do I need to pivot, flex, modify, whatever word you want to use, so that my message from my ID and DISC will land for the SC that's in front of me that thinks and processes information 100% different. And in Myers-Briggs, you're an EINJ. Well, after the fact, what does that mean? So I have people that come through, most of my clients, I do the foundational sales training. So they start with the basics and then we, escalate up with skill. And we talk about DISC or predictive index, or in my case, my communication style. And they'll come back and they'll say, if it's DISC, they go, oh, I think I'm an SC, but I'm not sure what that means. So to me, you have this brilliant tool, but it's not usable. It's got to be actionable in my world. Otherwise, we're not changing behavior. Yep. So my communication style, there's 5. One other thing, can I share real quick before I go into the 5 styles? So I have 5 because 20% of the time, I believe we're communicating with people that are wired the same as us. So that exchange, you've met people where you're like, gosh, I feel like I've known you my whole life. They probably communicate and maybe have some filters that you have in match. 80% or 8 out of 10 people we speak with don't communicate like us. So that becomes a potential blind spot. So I want to have every piece of actionable ammunition, if you will, to be able to navigate those 8 out of 10 people, because I could be losing a sale because I'm not phrasing it, or I'm not giving enough examples, or I'm not doing enough big picture for them, depending on what frame of reference they're coming from. So this is why I think the communication becomes critical, because 80% of the time we're talking to others that don't communicate like us. So we have to hone and learn the skill. So my first style, and then this was the other piece of it. So I'm an ID, I'm an EINJ. What does that mean? We not only chose labels, and I don't like the word labels, we chose topics or categories so that it was positive and people understood immediately without even reading any of the reports. So I'll give you one quick example. I did a speaking event pre-COVID, 200 people in the room, and I gave them the communication style assessment in advance. And it was so cute because people are running up to me. I'm a stimulating motivator. I'm a heartfelt advocate. They hadn't even heard me speak. They didn't know anything about it, but the titles resonated with them. And that was really one of the main things of why we created this assessment. All right. So number one style is the stimulating motivator. And I'm going to ask you to guess what I am at the end. It will become obvious, Jeff. Trust me on this. So a stimulating motivator, we're confident, we have high energy, quickly shift gears, positive thinker, glasses always half full, a mover and a shaker out there, and one who empowers. And really, it's all about inspiring others to get to that next level. With our strengths, we have blind spots or challenges. So another challenge for the stimulating motivator is, because we're so eager to support and go rah, rah behind everybody, we actually can create angst if the other style doesn't move as fast as us, or isn't as inspired as quickly. That change, that element of change, becomes more debilitating. So we can be viewed as a bulldozer. The other thing, sometimes we can get caught up in the feelings of the human that we forget that we can be causing the anxiety and leaving a wake of havoc behind us. So that's the stimulating motivator. The next one is the heartfelt advocate. So heartfelt advocates were supportive, understanding. We're people problem solvers, sensitive, people-oriented, empathetic, really good listeners, and we have this very easygoing, harmonious nature. Heartfelt advocates are your most loyal employees and your most loyal friends. So I tease. I say, yeah, the stimulating motivator is behind you. I support you. I'll send you the money to get you out of jail. The heartfelt advocate, they're sitting next to you. They went down with you. That's the difference between a stimulating motivator and a heartfelt advocate. With those strengths for a heartfelt advocate, sometimes past feelings get in the way, so it can debilitate a heartfelt advocate from moving forward, because fear creeps in. What if what happened last time happens again? So those past hurts can slow us down from making decisions, and oftentimes we miss opportunities. Next one is the precise assessor. Precise assessor, hardworking, self-disciplined, extremely analytical, conscientious, dreamer, stable, critical thinker. All of those technical kind of wiring are precise assessors. What's the blind spot with the precise assessor? We tend to avoid conflict, and we can get in the, which obviously can get in the way of progress. Because if you and I are collaborating on a project and you say, no, we need to do this, but I know I've done the analytics and I know it should be this, I'll let you take over and I will take the back seat, because it's a precise assessor. I don't want conflict, but I'm not going to find my voice to advocate for myself. Danger. The next one is the observing designer. Observing designer is very goal-oriented, but here's the thing with the observing designer. They're extremely single-minded. So that's where the innovation comes from. And I call and I'll give you a hint, I'm not an observing designer. I call my observing designer the most brilliant walking the earth, because they can do so much research and go down the rabbit hole that they see 50 perspectives, where I don't have that capability to do that kind of research and analytics. So I don't have 50 alternatives, that's where the innovative organizer, that's where the observing designer comes from. Now, here's the challenge with them. You go down the rabbit hole, 6 hours later, you have deadlines you have to meet, and you missed everything because you were doing research. So sometimes we can't get, it's like the absent-minded professor. We can't get out of our own way, and that's dangerous as well. Last one, the innovative organizer. These are the quick decision makers. As long as they have enough information, or we have enough information, we'll pull the trigger and make a decision. It's funny because the innovative organizer is actually the easiest one to sell to, because give me enough information, it solves my solution, bam, I'm moving forward. That's great. We are leaders that have that vision to say, nope, we're moving forward. This is a glitch, but we're moving forward. We need that drive right to the finish line. Well, what's the blind spot? Sometimes your drive to the finish line, we leave a wake of chaos behind us, and we're wasting money and time because we're not getting those precise assessors. We're not getting those observing designers, their feedback to hopefully make whatever the goal or the product, the service more streamlined. We know better, right? It's that old, let me close my ears, la, 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 I know what I'm doing. So they're the 5 styles.
Okay. Can you just name them each now again? Stimulating motivator, heartfelt assessor,
heartfelt advocate,
got it.
Precise assessor, that's the person who likes detail and they seek perfection. Observing designer, they go down the rabbit hole. And then innovative organizers, that's the CEO mentality.
Okay, so if we see those as a circle with each of them being 20%, I would say you're right on the line between the first two.
Stimulating motivator and heartfelt advocate? Interesting. I am a very high stimulating motivator, and my second is the innovative organizer. So when people meet me, they'll say, oh, like, and I go through this, say, oh, you're definitely an innovative organizer. Depending on the venue, sometimes I have to be, come on, we got to get to work. Like, stop now, enough is enough. But I am a stimulating motivator. I want everybody to win. I want everybody to succeed. I love you. I want to help you. If you don't do the work, you're dead to me. That's the innovative organizer underneath. My heartfelt advocate is third. So good dissection.
So I've taken the disc, and as you can probably guess, I'm a high D. I'm almost at the edge of the circle, right in the center. I mean, yes. The first time I took it, like, yeah, that sounds just like me. And being aware of that, I'm aware that sometimes, even though the type of people that you and I sell to, high-powered, big ego people, I do have to dial myself back a little bit because, when you and I walk in, even though they've got big egos, they know they're talking to an expert salesperson. That's right. And their guard is up a little bit. And if I come on too strong with them, they're just going to do this, which never works out. So nope. Knowing what you are is useful. But here's a question I've asked many, many times. So obviously we want to use this, and I'd like to hear how you suggest we use it. But we want to use this in the way we speak to the person we're trying to sell to, because the way we speak to them is how they're going to understand us. So how do we balance the understanding of who we're dealing with and understand that we have to kind of tailor our approach? And how do we take that with being authentic? Because if I speak to you a certain way, if I try to speak to you a different way because that's not who you are, am I being inauthentic? So how do we balance that?
This is such a great question. I get asked this a lot. So I'll share a story, right? So I have an architect as a client, an extreme high observing designer, the rabbit hole, and a precise assessor. I have none of those in my wiring. They're like negative, okay, in the scoring. So when I was coaching him, I have to be prepared because he'll ask me 9 different questions, kind of the same, but he's looking for that 9 different perspectives. So before I would get on a coaching call with him, I would really have to get my head in the game. I'd have to lower my energy significantly. So not as much coffee that day, but I would have to lower my energy, and I really have to listen to all of his questions and all of his perspectives. And then once I understand that, then I could say, all right, let's peel back the onion. I want to take this a step by step. I don't need a step by step. I'm a big picture thinker. Give me the big broad stroke. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. He needs that step by step by step. So as soon as I understand what he needs from me, now I can frame my coaching to answer all of his questions, concerns, whatever he's struggling with. But I need to get all that detail. Do you know how much patience that takes? Again, patience.
Do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I do, because if you're going to ask me the same question 9 times, in my head, I'm going, are you effing kidding me? I just answered this question 7 times already. Stop it. So yeah, I get it. You got to you have to take into account that not everybody is you, and not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody makes decisions the same way. And again, I always want to be me, But I get that me sometimes doesn't work for people. Like
That's
you
right.
mentioned cheerleader. I'm a huge cheerleader. I love
Yep.
being a cheerleader. It's part of my management style when I manage salespeople, but that doesn't work for everybody. Being on all the time doesn't. Just ask my ex-wife. Being on all the time definitely did not work for her.
Yeah. So think about it. So before I'd get on, I had to do a little pre-work with myself to be able to show up the way he needed me to. And that's my job. I really believe at the core, that is my job. So it was funny because when I taught him this model, he asked me that exact question, but will I show up inauthentic? And I said, no, because and he's a very heartfelt advocate as well. I said, you come from a place of love, care, and respect with everything you do. So you just have to be mindful. If you're speaking with someone like me, please don't get in the weeds because you're going to confuse me. And then I'm not going to make a decision. Where you can hit me hard with the facts, right? Give it to me straight. And then I'm going to be able to make a decision. So just because you're giving it to me straight doesn't mean you're being inauthentic. You're just not giving me all of the data. Reverse it. I'm giving you a lot of data because that's what I have it. I know it. I'm an expert. I can give you that data, right? That's what you need for me to make the decision on the long term. Am I inauthentic? No, because it's in my brain. It's me. It's my information. I just know I need to give it to you in multi steps. So again, you have to be like, I'm a jokester. I have a good sense of humor. I think I like to laugh at life, and all of these styles, creating that laughter and that calmness of energy when you're with them, that builds that know, like, trust factor, even though I don't communicate exactly the same way they do. But being mindful and showing they deserve. Here's the thing. I feel it's my responsibility for me to show up the way they need me to. That's my job. That's what I'm an expert in. And that needs to be taught, because I think the more we can do that, the more authentic and organic we can show up to help the people in front of us to make those good decisions, to not be influenced by somebody who could be manipulative with us. Did that all just make sense, Jeff?
It did. And Michael North, one of my favorite recruiters in the world, a great guy, says he loves this topic. So let's keep going. So
Oh,
here's, I think, the real essence of the question now. So we know what type of person, what type of communicator we are, but how do we find out our buyer's communication style? And why is that so important? I mean, obviously it's important because if we know their communication style, we can tailor our approach to them. Please expand on that.
So here's the thing. And then, when people take my communication style, you get a sequence of emails, right? And I give little tips, little action steps. In addition, the reports they get all those action steps. So immediately it's about identifying strengths. How do we leverage it? What's my blind spot? How to leverage that as well. So here is the important piece of the puzzle. When you get really good at understanding the styles and you get really good at playing with it. So here's the first step I always share. Start to identify people in your family or friends that you really know well, intimately, like you really know who they are. And see, I think they lead with a heartfelt advocate. And I think their secondary is an innovative organizer. So start to play with people you know. Then go to that person, your sister, your brother, and say, listen, I'm working on this new skill. Can you take this assessment? And this is what I tell everybody. If it's your sister and they're retired, they don't want to get my emails, just tell them to go and cancel, unsubscribe. I don't feel bad, but you're using the tool effectively, yet another tool that you could start to really play with the different styles and identify. As soon as you get really good at doing that playing and asking people to take the CSA and they can unsubscribe again, I don't feel bad. All of a sudden, now you meet with a client, within 30 seconds, you'll know if they're a heartfelt advocate, stimulating motivator, et cetera. Here's the other thing I tell people. Don't worry, because depending on people, how they answer a question, like maybe my innovative organizer, the mood I am when I take that test, my innovative organizer and stimulating motivator flip-flop, but the intensity is still, they're very close to each other, right? So if you know that person's a heartfelt advocate and you're not sure of their secondary, don't worry about it. If you approach them in this very heart-centered way, they're going to react to you. So that's really the easiest way. Is for me, it's reality. Let's stick to reality. And if I can use this tool and understand, now I could start to apply. And you should be able to do it within 30 seconds when you get really good at it.
Love that. By the way, before we go on, I got to bring up Michael North's name again. If you're in sales or you're looking for salespeople, Michael North is somebody you should speak to. I know I love networking with people who recruit salespeople and sales managers, and I know lots and lots of them. He's right at the top of the list. The guy's amazing. So anybody who's if you're in sales and you're listening to this and you're looking for a job, please contact Michael North at Synchrony Talent. Or if you're looking for salespeople or sales leaders, I brought Michael into a client of mine where one of the things I offer is outsourced sales management. I eventually replaced myself with a permanent employee, and Michael helped me bring on just a brilliantly wonderful VP of sales, just a terrific guy. But let's get back to you. What are some of the things that we can do besides be an effective communicator and understand our style and theirs to remove buyer resistance and how can we really earn trust? Because we both know that unless somebody trusts you, they're not going to buy from you. So what can we do about that?
Yeah. And here's the reality of it again. I believe that it's about building skill, but building skill in a logical way that's going to create an impact and an ROI on time and money. So like you, Jeff, I have a 7-step process, right? During COVID, what did all business owners do? Because we had no business coming in, because I did everything live like you. Everything was live. I had nothing digitized. What was that, right? We didn't have these platforms that we have now. So the technology has been amazing the way it's caught up since COVID. But anyway, I wrote a book and I wrote about my 7-step sales process. Here's why. I started networking with small business owners. Prior to COVID, my clients were all corporate clients, and small business owners started saying, "Can you help me?" And I was like, "Sure." The problem was they didn't have money, right? Because they weren't making a living because of COVID. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book, because then I make a few bucks and it helps that small business owner start to at least on their path of changing that behavior and refining their sales skills. So I'll go through quickly my 7 steps. Here's the importance. Whatever you're using, sit down and really figure out what are the steps, because under each of the steps, there's a whole bunch of sub skills. So if we could figure out, again, your process, my process, Joe Schmo's process, know what it is, know what the sub skills are. And I believe you have to start with step 1 and really get good at it before you go to 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, you're working on 5, but you're losing the sale in step 2. What are you doing? So let's be logical in how we create our skill. So for me, step 1, we started with this preparation. Please be prepared, be organized, know your products and services, know your system, know if there's a tech glitch that you could keep going on with your presentation because the PowerPoint isn't loading. Should not matter. Be prepared, be organized, and know what you're going to say, or know what questions you're going to ask. Step number 2, building rapport. You mentioned that before. The CSA, predictive index, DISC, all of those help with you build that rapport. The better we get at it, the faster we can build that really good first impression. You cannot skip this step. People think, oh, I'm good, everybody loves me. Do they? So really be mindful of that. How are you going to build rapport with that person? Use CSA or DISC or whatever the models are that you're currently using in your organization. 3, questions. You cannot get up there and wing it. I have 8 questions that I've been using for 22 years since I've been in business, and they haven't changed. So here's the piece of the puzzle though. So you should have your 5 questions, whatever it is, big open-ended questions. So you get everything you need from the client. Step 4 is tethered to step 3, which is listening. Here's the importance of listening. Listening is now being present. And I believe 70-30 split here, Jeff. So I should be listening 70% of the time. So if I'm listening 70% of the time, whose information am I getting? The client's real situation. And here's the other piece of that 70-30 with the listening. This is where you ask follow-up questions. I can't prepare my follow-up questions in advance because I don't know what the customer is going to say. So based on my 8 good questions, I know I'm going to get what I need. Then when they respond, I could start to peel back their onion and really dig into what's truly happening. So then what is the customized solution I could create? So they're tethered together. You kind of dance back and forth with 3 and 4 questions listening. 5, this is where you present your solution. It should be customized. It should be specific to everything they just addressed with you. And you should give them short term, this is what we need to do, but to achieve, because usually objectives are pretty big and it's not a one and done, a one quick fix. That's just not what I find with sales. So we start with the basics perhaps, or maybe even a little more advanced, but then what is the trajectory? Because I want them to come back to me over and over again. So I need to stay in their orbit of understanding how are these skills developing, et cetera. So when I present my solution, it's right here, right now, and then saying, hey, Jeff, these other things you mentioned, If we throw that in the mix, nothing's going to change. And then I go into my logic of why, and then we can add. So maybe next year, you see, I'm filling my pipeline within my presentation. And then the next one is asking for the business. I call it confirming the relationship. This is important. So if you're listening, really listen to this. 3 things should happen when you get to asking for the business. 1, the client's leaning in. Where have you been my whole life? This is exactly what it's you. And wow, this is like the perfect client for me. It's like magic is happening before your eyes. It's a let's go. Let's just sign the deal, move on.
Hang on, before you go on, what you're saying is so crucial. I just want to emphasize something. I'm often asked, Jeff, how do you know when it's time to close? Here's how you know: when the prospect knows it's time to close, and it's when they're leaning in, when they're saying, they will tell you when it's time to ask for the business. And if you do it too soon, you're going to screw yourself and them, and you're going to blow the whole deal. So please continue, but I couldn't help it.
Oh, and now, so you just set me up. Thank you, my friend. He just teed me up, right? The second thing is I say to the client, you're not ready for me yet. You need me. We agree. Because they'll say, yes, I want to hire you. I say, great. You're not ready for me. What? I say, especially small business owners, right? When I got into that realm, you're working on this, you're doing this, you have your website, you're doing marketing. You're not going to put the effort you need to into changing your sales behavior. So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Take the CSA. Let's meet in 3 weeks. We'll talk about that. I want you to start playing with it. But you know what? I'm looking 2-3 months before you and I really work together. But we're going to be talking along the whole way. So I still remain relevant. And the other thing I say is, I really need to hear your marketing. I really need to hear what's going on. I become part of that partnership with whoever else they're working with, because I have to make sure they pull that into that messaging in when they present their solutions. So they love it. They think, oh, you don't want the business now? Like, I'm willing to pay you. And you're not ready for me yet. Trust me, because here's the other deal. My reputation, and I don't ever want anyone going back and saying, yeah, her stuff doesn't work, because you weren't ready for it. You didn't have the time to put in. You have to practice, right? It's not like I give you the 7 steps and I have a magic wand and poof, it's in your head and you're off to the races. You have to work on these skills. So that is, and then the third thing that happens.
Wait, because you keep saying such great stuff.
Yay, I'm so smart.
You see me smiling because I can't tell you how many times I've told people about, and what you're doing is what I call the takeaway. Everybody wants what they can't have. And instead of saying, want to buy my stuff, you saying, I'm not sure if you're ready for my stuff, that causes people to want you even more. Just brilliant. I love that.
And it was so funny. I did another podcast 2 years ago. And when I said this, the post said, where were you 3 years ago? She had this client and they were stringing her along. And she knew they weren't ready for her. I said, the timing was off. So now you've wasted all, and they felt bad because they knew they wanted her. They just weren't ready for her. I said, you would have saved yourself a year of angst. You would have followed up with them, of course, but you wouldn't have been, let me work on another proposal. Let me change she did so much effort and got zero business out of it for like 18 months or something. So you're not ready for me is important because it keeps them in your pipeline. It's just the pipeline's a little bit of an extension there.
Yeah. And so often people keep chasing deals that are not ready to close. And this is why I'm consistently emphasizing you have got to be prospecting consistently and effectively every single day so that there's always somebody going into the top of the funnel and working their way down. Because you can't, I don't know how many years experience you have. I have 48 years experience.
You're older than me. I'm only 40.
So between us, we've got almost 90 years of experience in sales. We're both pretty darn good at this, but together, we're not good enough to talk anybody into anything that they don't want, don't need, can't afford, or aren't ready for. And it's stupid for us to try. I can't tell you how many times I repeat this. Go prospect your ass off, because you always want to have somebody who's ready to come out of the bottom of the funnel, but you got to keep feeding the top. And what's your last one?
And before I give the last one, I know we're almost out of time, but Jeff, this is important what you just said. Yes, we have to keep prospecting all the time. The problem is there's some trainers out there, and I won't mention any names. They're so icky to me, but they say if you don't have a 25% request for refunds, you're not selling enough. And when I hear that, I want to vomit, because I think, oh, first of all, You just push somebody, and oh, by the way, these are like $25,000 ticket items, right? So it's all about the ripoff, in my opinion, and the hype. You get people in the hype and they buy. And if you don't have a 25% refund rate, you're doing it wrong. So here in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, I wouldn't sleep at night. Number one, that's so icky. Number two, how much work on the back end now doing all these refunds. I want to be out making magic with people, not giving refunds and feeling that icky energy on the back end. But this is still, we talked about Wolf of Wall Street and all of that. There's still a lot of trainers, consultants out there that believe in that hardcore sales. And anybody listening who's not, you're not my client, because I will never teach that at all. I think it's just the wrong
I
approach.
sold Encyclopedia Britannica door to door. I know how to hard close people. It was a one call close 40 years ago. People buying a $2,000 set of books that their kids could go to the library and use for free. We knew it was a one call close. I know how to hard close, but it doesn't work anymore. Anybody who does what you and I do that's teaching that kind of stuff is really doing a disservice to themselves, to everybody who's paid them money to learn from them, and to the profession of sales in general. The internet really changed everything, because now the consumer has access to competitive information easily. So that hard close thing just doesn't work.
It doesn't. It does, and people are.
And I don't want to do it. I love the term you used. It's icky.
It's icky. My technical term, it's icky. And then the third thing that happens in asking for the business is I say to the client, I can't help you. I can, but I'm not the right match for you. You know what? I have my friend Jeff. He's really the one. This is his zone of genius. And I just had this recently. One of my old colleagues, she has since retired. She's on board of directors now. One of the executive directors was looking for some executive coaching. So of course she calls me, and I said, I've never worked with nonprofit. Do I think I can help them? Sure. But I have a friend. She's been doing this for 50 years in nonprofit, working with executive director and coaching. I just feel like the money you're going to spend, you'll get a better return on that. I said, listen, if you want me to help them, I will. And she was like, no, I see you're uncomfortable. And I said, Mary's the right person. You really need to meet Mary. And I said, and listen, if the person isn't comfortable with her, that's fine. But I just think you'll get more leverage out of it. And I did an introduction, and they're doing business. So again, for me, it's doing the right thing. And oh, by the way, Jeff, because we've been doing this so long, we're dinosaurs were roaming the earth when we started, right? I know. And I'm a Jersey girl, so I say I got a guy. I know somebody that can help you with fill in the blanks. And here's the other thing, because I live in integrity and honesty and good vibes. I only work with people that are the same. They come from my term. My tagline in my sales is, if you're not coming from love, care, and respect, please stop. You're doing it wrong. So if the people I deal with, they understand that level of respect and kindness, and that's what they're bringing to the table with, again, fill in the blank, a plumber, another sales trainer, a marketing person, whatever. But I have a big network because people like me. I like people, and I refer. And oh, by the way, what's the ripple effect to that? You get business back tenfold.
100%. There's an acronym I've taught my kids from a very, very young age. My kids are now 22 and 21. And the acronym is ADTRT. Always do the right thing. And I cannot agree with you more about, if you're not the right solution, you should not have to wait till the prospect says no to you. You should be telling them, you know what, I'm not right for you, but let me introduce you to somebody. I can't say that it's happened often, but more than once in my 18 years of doing this business, I've walked into somebody, and at the end of the conversation, I said, I got to tell you something. You're doing everything right. You just don't need me. I'd love to take your money, and I'd love to work with you, but you just don't need me. Or here's an example. When I started doing sales training, I also did customer service training, because sales and customer service very closely related, except I met somebody, her name is Randy Bussey. Her company is Workforce Development Group. She is a world-class customer service trainer. And once I met her and spoke with her, I said, you know what? I'm ripping people off if they're taking my customer service course. She's brilliant at it. I'm not. I'm good, but brilliant. I'd rather refer somebody to her and have her do the right thing for them. Let her make some money. Let her do the right thing for them, and the client get what they really need, than me make a few bucks and them not getting what they want. Because I'm with you. The universe always pays you back when you do the right thing. Always, always. It may not be at that particular moment, but again, I want to sleep at night, and I find that you absolutely do get paid back. And we've still got a few minutes. We're not quite out of time yet. I've got 75 more questions. You got something else?
The last step. So that was step 6. Step 7, and this is where I see a lot of salespeople mess up: follow up. When we started back in the day, you needed to follow up with a client about 5 times, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, let's do business, right? It's that fifth touch, if you will. Now, because our attention span, humans, our attention span is 6 seconds. Here's a fun fact: goldfish are 7 seconds. So you do the math. I know, how sad is that? So we have a 6-second attention span. So with follow up, now our clients or prospects need to be followed up between 13 and 18 times. Please don't panic. That means an email. It could be a Facebook Live like we're doing, or a LinkedIn Live. It could be an article you wrote on LinkedIn. It could be a referral of somebody you wanted to share.
Yep.
It could be a phone call, a Zoom meeting, right? It could be you saw them in networking. They need to see you multiple times. And that's about 15 to 18 nights. It builds that know, like, trust factor, but you have to be in the game, because if you're not, and for us, Jeff, we play the long game, right? So that goes back to the first where we started. We've gone full circle. It's not transactional. And the only way to play the long game, follow up. You have to have a systemized process in place of how are you going to follow up? What is your CRM system? Whatever it is for you. How do you tag people? But you have to have something concrete, and you have to put them through a systematic touch point, or you're going to leave money on the table, or they're going to go someplace else when they're ready to buy because they forgot all about you.
Yeah, I could not agree more. My dear friend, Joe Applebaum, I don't know if you know him, but I'd be happy to
I
introduce.
do know Joe. I love Joe.
He's a brilliant LinkedIn trainer. He's also an AI expert. In fact, a week
Yep.
from Monday is what, the 29th? I think on the 29th. Wait a minute. Today's the 13th. The 22nd, the 23rd. Joe and I are doing an hour just on using AI in sales. So
I'm gonna have to watch that.
But Joe constantly says the fortune is in the follow-up, and it is. So many times I find salespeople are stopping just before the prospect is ready.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't gotten back to me. They're not returning my calls. First of all, I don't understand people who, and I'm guessing that, like me, you get this all the time. I'm getting ghosted right and left. Well, why aren't you setting up a next appointment? Why are you leaving it to chance? It doesn't make sense. But the fortune is in the follow-up. And it's exactly what you said. Everything I read says between 12 and 18 touches just to get somebody to respond to you in the first place. But the other thing to consider is, and I have this conversation constantly, when you get to the end of your sales process, you presented your proposal with using the 4 elements that I believe need to be in any proposal, in any presentation. You've told them what you're going to do for them, and you've told them the investment, the number. And people expect them, will you buy from me? And people to make an instant decision. Now, I want instant decisions, but it's unreasonable that when you talk to somebody and say, here's what it's going to be, for them to make a decision instantaneously. Now, sometimes they can do that, but I don't know about you. I can make $100 decision instantaneously. I can make $1,000. I can make a $5,000 decision instantaneously, but 10,000, 50,000, 100 or 200,000, I'm going to need to ponder that a bit.
Absolutely.
And while I want to close everything yesterday too, I have to understand that the prospect is not me. They don't have my knowledge. I know what I'm going to do for them, but they have to process that a little. And if we don't give them the time and follow up with them regularly and give them a reason to stay in touch and do business with us, then we're missing the boat. And I find that salespeople tend to leave a lot of business on the table that they could be closing if they just slow down a bit, which reinforces that need to consistently prospect. Because if you don't have a lot of prospects in the pipeline, then closing every deal is too important to you, and you're going to push too hard.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say with the follow-up is, and here's maybe a tip that people could use. When people say to me, I'm ghosted, I said, here's what you do. How do they want to be communicated with? Is it a text? Is it a voicemail? Because we want to honor where people are coming from. Like if people need me, I say LinkedIn or email me. Please don't call me. I don't pick up my phone. I'm working. The phone is so insignificant to me, right? Who I'm dealing with right here, right now, that's what's important, right? I'm always present with my clients, or if I'm teaching, whatever. Send an email or a voice message and say, listen, I never want to be a pest or overstep. I've left 4 messages, no response. I know you're busy. Listen, here's my number again. Here's my email, whatever, depending on the correspondence venue. And then I say, when you're ready, I'm here. I am going to stop my follow-up for now. I'll touch base maybe in 6 months, because I don't want to have that ick factor. And I use that in my messaging. And you know what happens, Jeff? 90% of the time, they respond, no, you keep following up. You're reminding me. I just have this, and this going on. And then, but now we're connected again. And I say, oh, great. Thanks for getting back to me. Listen, quick question. 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. When do you want me to follow up? I'll honor that, but I want to give you room to do what you need to do. Follow up in 6 weeks. Now, when I follow up in 6 weeks, they're showing up for me because I honored where they were. We let them ghost us. Send them, and then if they go I'm doing the Italian thing. If they give you the heave ho, then you don't follow up with them anymore. Then okay, it's a dead lead. But always do that. Let them know you don't want to be a pest. You want to be diligent with your follow up, because that's what you're going to teach them too. We have to live and breathe what we're teaching. And then they say, no, please follow up. I've been busy. So that's what I have found in my career.
And again, right in line with what I share, when people are getting ghosted, I teach them this technique, and then it looks like we're going to have to end. I've got 75 more questions for you, but when somebody's ghosting, I always suggest either leave a voicemail or send an email, and the subject line is, should I close the file? Question mark, question mark, question mark, all in caps. I know that means you're yelling, but you want to get people's attention. And then the body of it is going to say something like this: hey, Connie, you and I met 3 months ago. We had great conversations. You seemed incredibly interested in moving forward. I've sent you a bunch of emails with no response and left you a bunch of voicemails. And I want you to know I'm the type of salesperson that's incredibly persistent. So I'm going to keep following up until you tell me not to, but I don't want to be a pest. So if you're potentially interested in moving forward, let me know and we can have a further conversation. But if you're not, simply respond with, please close the file and I will never darken your door again. So should I close the file? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And 9 times out of 10, the response is, no, don't close the file. We just got busy with blah, blah, blah. But now you're re-engaged. I love talking to you because we agree on so much, Connie.
I know we're out of time, but my 7th step, the follow-up, I call it CPR. We got to keep the client alive, but it's consistent, persistent. Here's the big word, Jeff: respectful follow-up. So CPR follow-up keeps you in the game. Yeah.
Connie, I really do have 75 more questions for you. So John Hill just said, Jeff, you have to have Connie back again. So hopefully we can do that. Connie, I'm sharing your information, excuse me, on the screen. Could you tell people how to reach out to you if they're interested in potentially working with you?
Now, see, I'm showing my age, Jeff. I'm putting my eyes on. So my link tree, that top QR code, guys, it has everything on it, including the assessment. But I do want to put should I put the assessment in the chart, in the chat, Jeff?
Please do. And if you'd also
put it in the
chat and also put it into the Sales Pro Network later on, that'd be great.
Yes, I will do that. And then my podcasts are on there. So I'd love for you to follow me on my podcast. I have Jeff was on my show. So I have great guests as well, share great content, have great conversations. And of course, my email is there, Connie@changingthesales.game. And I respond. I don't have assistants or anybody. I respond to my emails. It's personal. Business is personal to me.
Connie, is there a phone number you want to give out? Because this is going out live, but this will also be a podcast that people will be listening to.
If you want, email me. I really don't pick up the phone, but my emails, you will always get a response within 24 hours, even when I'm on vacation. Yes, I'm one of those people.
And what's the email again?
Connie@changingthesales.game.com.
Connie, thank you so much for generously sharing your brilliance with us. Really terrific conversation. I hope you'll be back soon. And guys, I'll end as I always do. Please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Connie. Thanks so much.
Hi, guys.